Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw us, but we're back for more. We're back for round two here, and I'm excited about this one because I think she holds the record for appearances on Sportswire, and for good reasons. Because I remember her when she first came, I think right around this time last year, and I see her all over the place. She's even changed her Twitter handle. She's got her own page on Facebook. She is a rock star. She is a superstar. She's definitely on her way of being one of those premier people in wrestling, but she really knows her stuff. When I think about KOW, when I think about Odyssey Pro Wrestling, the person I think about who knows more than anybody is, of course, Lucy Simons. So let's get right to the chase here. And without further ado here on the Sports Show, the number one global sports show reporter and journalist, our very dear friend, Lucy Simons. Lucy, hope it was worth the wait.
That, you know what? That made it worth the wait. Just that in general just made it worth it. That was the best one yet, Tom.
You know what? We'll work. I've been listening to a lot of UFC ones. I've been listening intensively to some boxing ones. I saw the Canelo fight last week, and I was like, you know what? I got to work on these more. I feel like now I'm getting used to it. I got to get the posture down. I got to get it all down, because when I got Lucy here, because Lucy's been here pretty much more than anybody, I got to make sure I get it done. Listen, even Andre Decker, of all people, last week said it wasn't that bad. Andre Decker was like, he had a twinkle in his eye. You could tell deep down, Mr. Decker, he liked my intro. But obviously, Lucy,
Impressive.
good to be with you. Yeah, definitely impressive. I know it was a little bit of a wait. We had the Los Slankadors. We had some technical difficulties, but there is so much to get into with you, because obviously we've got Odyssey Pro Wrestling's Mutiny, which is now right around the corner. We've got KOW talk to get into. I mean, there is so much to get into. We're going to try and get all into it here. But obviously, let's set the tables for those that are watching, listening to this on Sportswire Radio, because I want to go straight to the chase here in KOW. When it came to our main event for the World Championship, 2-Bit, the leader of the underclass, against the War Machine, Craig Collins. I thought there for a little while that the War Machine, Craig Collins, was going to reclaim his championship, but 2-Bit is still the leader. He is still the reigning, defending KOW champion. Set the tables for us on how it all unfolded.
Well, this match was the main event of the first half of the show because it was such a stacked card. That I mean, basically every match was a main event. But yeah, this was
no question, no question.
Yeah, this was just before the interval, and the tables match actually main evented. But I mean, they were both really worthy of their spots on the card. And obviously either of them could have main evented. But yeah, we had this. This was the third match in, and I mean, 2-Bit came in with fighting talk from the get go, and it was quite funny. He got on the mic and he said, I'm a better wrestler than you, Craig Collins. And you're old. He's basically just called Craig Collins old. He said, you were here 10 years ago and you're not here anymore. I'm not your opponent. Time is your opponent. Old age is your opponent. And at this point, Collins just decked him straight in the face. Collins had heard enough, and he was on the attack really brutally, and he was just taken down with loads of suplexes, and Collins gained the first fall just like that. This was about 30 seconds into the match. So this 2 out of 3 falls match was on its way to possibly being over if Collins could get the next fall. But that wasn't to be because thanks to Jennifer, you know, you might have predicted what happened there. Thanks to Jennifer, 2-Bit managed to get the second fall. To be fair, it was a back and forth match, but Jennifer is kind of always the deal breaker in matches like this for 2-Bit. So yeah, that's what happened there for the second fall. But then she got kicked out by the referee. But then that upset the rest of the underclass, who then came out. And Collins was like, well, I'm ready. I'll fight you all. And absolute chaos unfolded. The Freak Show came out to the ring and they were brawling all over. And in the midst of all this chaos, Craig Collins went for his frog splash, which is his finisher.
Yep.
But Decker pushed Nightmare. They were fighting on the apron. Decker pushed Nightmare into him, which meant that Collins fell off the turnbuckle, and Two-Bit could go for the rat trap and locked it in, and that's ultimately what won the match for him. So Two-Bit ended up retaining thanks to shenanigans, which I guess we kind of all dreaded was going to happen, and it unfortunately did. But I think it maybe bodes a potential rematch for Collins, but at the end of the day, this is the second time he's lost, so it's hard to say where we go from
I
here.
see. This is where, and I understand because it was another controversial ending, and chaos continues to be a huge part of KOW. I know, Matt. Listen, we're gonna get into management. You know, we're gonna get into management, but I mean, KOW right now. I mean, I don't know if you can justify round 3 Two-Bit the War Machine Craig Collins, because I don't want to all of a sudden necessarily defend or play the hand of the underclass's leader, Two-Bit, our reigning defending KOW world champion. But if I'm Two-Bit, right, why would I want to be in the ring with the War Machine Craig Collins? I've already beat him at the last 2 events. What do I have left to prove?
Well, you're exactly right, and I think Two-Bit is obviously, as champion, well within his rights to refuse a rematch. I guess he can't really be forced into it. I mean, Craig Collins has got a case to say that he deserves one, but the fans have already seen it twice, and ultimately it's about what the fans are going to want. I'm not sure if they're going to want to see it again. I mean, as much as we all love Craig Collins and we want to get behind him, there's only so much he can put his body through, and at the end of the day, we can't guarantee that.
And also, how many more times are we going to see it? Because we know the ending here. We know the ending. I mean, and we've got some comments in here. Let me get to some of those comments. Obviously, our very good friend, Mr. Kieran Hayes, who we know, and obviously he in his own right is, I guess you could say, alter ego. He's a professional wrestler for Nonstop Action Wrestling. He's going to be in the house next week for us, and he has an eyeball there, but he also goes on as a wrestling fan to see so many screwy finishes for my liking. I like to get the job done clean. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I guess that would be the defense of the War Machine, Craig Collins, getting another crack at his KOW championship that he frankly never lost. But I feel like, though, that between now and July 9th, I mean, I get there's a case and you say KOW's in a pinch, but I want to see somebody else when it comes to Two-Bit. Or frankly, the way things left off with the main event and the way things left off after the match, I mean, could we even see, I don't know, maybe a multiple person match of some sort? I mean, what's your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, I mean, a six-man tag would be good. If we could possibly see Craig Collins in the Freak Show facing Two-Bit and 2 of his teammates, but then of course Two-Bit has quite a lot of teammates, so the odds would still be stacked in his favor.
Decker and Logan, I would have to think, continue that. I mean, that would make sense, right? Decker and Logan and Two-Bit, the underclass, first the Freak Show and the War Machine, Craig Collins.
Well, yeah, that would be an absolutely amazing match. I'm sure about it, but I think Keenan and Jennifer will probably find some way to get involved. I think Craig Collins is going to be really frustrated, and I think he's going to want his hands on Two-Bit, but I also feel like he's quite a prideful person. So I'm not sure if he will want to go up against Two-Bit again after coming short twice, because what does that say about him, that he's relying on being given more and more opportunities? It's a difficult situation.
Let me ask you a question, and I know that we still have a ways to go here between now and Meltdown, and we're going to be speaking a lot about Meltdown. You know that, I know that, everybody watching us knows this, but let's go with this. I mean, let's say hypothetically the War Machine, Craig Collins, does not get another crack at this championship between now and July 9th, and I'm sure ALP and Commissioner Steele, they have a tough call to make here. They definitely have a tough call to make, but let's say hypothetically, though, when it comes to this scenario, and War Machine Craig Collins is not going to get another crack at this, who do you foresee as somebody that could be a worthy opponent for Two-Bit for his world championship, July the 9th at Meltdown, Cloud9 in the Lounge?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I mean, I think, I mean, he's gonna want to be defending at the next show. That's for definite. I feel like even someone like 2-Bit wants to be an active champion and prove himself. I mean, my instinct just sends me straight to say Lucas Neon, but he won't really have the opportunity to prove himself, just because of their history. The matches we've already seen from them two. I mean, just from a KOW fan point of view, that would be excellent to see. But he's not been Lucas Neon's not been successful in his most recent matches. He's lost his showcase title, so I'm not expecting KOW management to do that unless something
All right,
happens
so let
between
me
now and
throw
then.
something out there that I'm going to, I knew you were going to say this, so I had a plan. I had a plan for this. So here's my plan again. And I don't know what management's thinking. I don't know what ALP's thinking. They've got a lot on their plate. We're going to certainly get to the Rowan and Brian Aidenson in a little while. I know you definitely know who he is. But why don't we throw it out there? Maybe we should do this. Why don't we have, I don't know, a triple threat match or a one-on-one match to determine who is that number one contender to face 2-Bit? I've got a comment that's going to address that here in a second. But what's your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, I think something like that would work. But then you have people arguing over who deserves to be in the qualifying match. So I think there's so many competitors in KOW, it's difficult to whittle it down. So to have a multi-man match where you can have as many as those people involved as possible would definitely be a good idea.
All right, now let me get to a comment from somebody that was actually there at Cloud9 in the lounge, and that was Lord Damian Stone. Obviously, know him from CCW, and he came and watched the Dimension. Here's what he had to say. He says, maybe the War Machine taking a little time out of the title picture to regroup and rethink his strategy against 2-Bit would be beneficial to him in the long run. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, definitely. I think someone like 2-Bit gets in your head, and that's 2-Bit. Even though he's obviously got the numbers game, he's got his tactics, but that's kind of his main threat, is that you become dismantled mentally by him. Because I think Craig Collins is probably starting to doubt himself. He even said, not at Redemption, but at the show before that, at TakeOver, he said, yeah, 2-Bit, you out wrestled me tonight. You were the better wrestler. And he wanted this 2 out of 3 falls match to prove he was the better wrestler. And I think in his mind, he's 2-Bit has defeated him in that, and that's ultimately what it boils down to. So I think, yeah, taking time out of the title picture to think about his strategy, maybe get a teammate to back him up, something like this might be beneficial for him. I just think, yeah, having the time to clear your head rather than launching straight into another match. Yeah, that would probably work for Craig Collins. But also, he's had so much time out of KOW already. He's not going to want to sit back. So, if he can find another opponent, gain some more victories under his belt to build his confidence, yeah, I think that could be a strategy that could work for him.
Let me ask you a question, because I got to bring up this person before I get to Kieran's comment. Where does Thug Life Taylor West play in all this? Because that was the name I was waiting for you to talk about.
Taylor West. So
Thug
yeah,
Life, Taylor West, Thug Life. I still, for whatever reason, have that pictured in my head for Taylor West.
Yeah, Thug Life, West Side. That's his thing.
West Side.
Yeah, West Side. That's that. He still did that at the show this week. He was supposed to be facing Dynamite Lee Dawson, but he basically came out to the ring and said, "Nah, he doesn't deserve to be in the ring with me. The fans don't deserve to see me in action." And he said, "Oh, I actually missed the fans," but then he started, insulting all the fans, which was kind of unnecessary. And he said, "You've all been waiting to see me perform in this ring, but you don't deserve it. So you're not getting it." And he said, "I'm coming back to KOW to take back what's rightfully mine, everything." And the first thing on that agenda is revenge. And then he sat there and watched Craig Collins' match, because we all know the history between those two. Yep. And then afterwards, he got into the ring and he said, "Craig Collins, I'm coming for you, and I mean it." But then he was like, no, I mean, I'm here for you. And he basically offered his hand to Craig Collins and said, "Look, you keep on getting screwed over and no one's got your back. The management definitely don't have your back. The Freak Show don't have your back. And the fans don't have your back. which isn't true. But this is what he was saying, and he said, "How about the best athlete in this town joins the hardest man in this town?" And I think it's about time the War Machine joined the West Side. And so this was quite an interesting proposition, but all the fans were chanting no at Craig Collins. Don't go to the West Side, because these two had a really storied feud before the pandemic.
Absolutely. I think we
So
spoke about that in the past. We
mm,
definitely have. We were doing the KOW recaps in the past. We definitely spoke about it,
mm,
I know.
yeah, so to see those two in a tag team would be quite strange. But there was a moment where Craig Collins seemed to be considering it. He definitely hesitated, but in the end, he turned his back and walked straight out of the ring. So that was a no from Craig Collins. So he seemed to have the opportunity there. But I think, like I said, Craig Collins is proud, and he's not going to turn to the dark side just because he's got 2 losses under his belt.
We'll certainly see here. And of course, Kieran jumps in and says he prefers his champions to win clean. Yeah, but we know professional wrestling, right? Over the past eons, right? We're all wrestling fans, whether we're professional wrestlers, we're like Lucy that reports and interviews and everything else. And we almost never get our world champions to win clean. I mean, very, very few exceptions. I could think of a title reign where it's defended. So, I mean, obviously, and Kieran also points out, says the fact that he hesitated may mean that he may come around to it in the end. It's an interesting point he made.
Yeah, I think I definitely thought for a hot second that he was going to accept the offer from Taylor West. And I think, yeah, the fact that he hesitated does maybe, he was obviously thinking about it. And between now and the next show, who knows what could happen. If he's, you know, if he's boiling over the fact that he's lost 2 times in a row, he might just become more annoyed and decide to take Taylor West's offer. Taylor West was really successful in KOW at the end of the day. They, like we said, those two face each other in the ring, so they know each other's strengths, and there's obviously some sort of respect from Taylor West to offer that to Craig Collins and call him the best athlete in Barrow. So there's a level of respect that has to be had. I'm just not sure if Craig Collins has that respect for Taylor West after everything that's happened.
Yeah, it's a tough one because obviously there's a very storied history here when it comes to Thug Life Taylor West and the War Machine Craig Collins, the former KOW World Champion. And if you like what you hear from KOW, give them a like on Facebook at Knockout W, KO_wrestling on Twitter, K__wrestling on Instagram. And of course, here with Lucy Simons, who does a phenomenal job covering KOW. And Lord Damian Stone here has a great question here for you. It says, could we possibly see Taylor West join the War Machine, Craig Collins? After all the time they spent in the ring together, there's got to be a familiarity there and potential for a great tag team. I mean, didn't we see this kind of in the past with then Sheriff Steele and King Ryan Grayson? Didn't we see kind of this scenario somewhat to an extent? I mean, walk me through your thoughts on that question and where we go from here.
Yeah, I think there is a potential for a great tag team there. Yeah, like we've been saying, there's familiarity between the two. If you know someone to face them in the ring, surely you can be a good tag team. It don't know, makes sense. They could perhaps find some success, but they've clearly got different views on wrestling. I remember Taylor West wasn't always the most honourable wrestler in the ring.
Oh, well aware.
Yeah, whereas Craig Collins is always kind of it's all about strong style. It's all about athleticism for him. So they've obviously got conflicting views, but two opposites attract.
That was the Paul Abdul song famously eons ago. I mean, listen, it worked for her, right? I mean, it was a number one hit, so you never know. I mean, obviously, those are some good points. And Kieran kind of says, kind of along the same lines here. Maybe it's the smart option to even the numbers. It might not be the best choice for the fans, but the War Machine has to make the right choice for him. Yeah, it's kind of like threading the needle, as they always say here.
Well, yeah, he's got to think about his career. He's gone from being, a former world champion to having to give up his title through no fault of his own and so he hasn't lost the title and he hasn't been able to win it back, and it's a shame for him. So I can see why he might want to do anything he can to get it back. But yeah, like I've been saying, I just feel like he's got lots of he's got values.
Yeah, it's
To
one of
team up
these.
with Taylor West would just get rid of those values.
And the War Machine, Craig Collins, has never been somebody that's really a team guy. He's always been very
Yeah,
much
that's
like
true.
he's about himself. He's very much like I can go at it alone. I don't trust. Definitely some really, really difficult decisions here. And again, that's why we're excited here to continue to talk KOW and Odyssey Pro Wrestling later on with Lucy Simons. And you got to give Lucy a follow here. Lucy Sim Writes. Sim Writes, Sim, whatever you want to call it here. And we've also got some comments in here. Woo Lucy. So obviously you've got your fans out here. You've got some support. We had the Los Lancadores a little while ago, and it was like some people didn't like them, some people liked them. So I have a feeling here this will be a little bit more in your favor, but we'll certainly see you. Lucy Sime01 also on Instagram as well. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. Let's talk about the other champion here for the underclass next, and we're going down the card here. That is Keenan, our reigning defending showcase champion, in a very, very intriguing match here in a fatal four-way. And you kind of talked about it. Big Guns Joe, Lucas Neon, and Dynamite Lee Dawson set the tables and how it all unfolded for Keenan to still be our showcase champion.
Yeah, this match was a lot of this match was Keenan and Big Guns Joe teaming up. Whether that was against Lucas Neon or Dynamite Lee, Dynamite Lee and Lucas Neon kind of interchanged between who was getting beat up by Big Guns Joe and Keenan for quite a lot of the match. But to be fair, like while Keenan and Big Joe could pull off a few, in sync moves or whatever, they were never going to get along as a team. I mean, these two guys are just not compatible at all. They kept on arguing over who should get the pin, things like this. So that was kind of a road to disaster. And on the other hand, you also had Dynamite Lee and Lucas Neon, who, the two good guys who wanted to get rid of Keenan and Big Guns Joe, but they also couldn't get on, and they ended up brawling as well at one point, which was obviously awesome to see. It's a bit of a dream match. So, yeah, I mean, there was one point where Keenan and Big Guns Joe both locked in at the ankle locks on either of the other two men, but they managed to get to the ropes, and they threw them both over the top rope by climbing up the ropes, and then Lee went for a suicide dive, and he hit it on the outside.
Wow!
And and Neon headed to the middle rope from inside the ring and took out everyone on the floor. So that was probably the biggest moment of the match. That was just really, really high energy, hard to keep up with. And then so these finishing moments of the match, Neon had just took out everyone on the floor. He got back in the ring. Big Guns Joe got back in the ring too. Neon hit his cutter, which is his finisher.
Yep.
But he was too tired to go for the cover. He'd just gone flying through the air. He was too tired.
He was trying,
and then
get there.
Yeah, it was painstaking to watch. And then Keenan launched in the ring and got the cover, and it was exactly like what he'd done at the show before it. So Keenan, I mean, no disrespect to Keenan, unless.
Keenan's a great wrestler. I mean, listen,
yeah,
I know he's nice, but I mean, I've covered Keenan. I've seen him in different companies. I mean, he's a nice get for them. He's a really good wrestler, Keenan.
Yeah, he definitely is. I was just going to say, I'm just trying to look at my notes, and I haven't written up the full report yet, so I'm just kind of looking at my notes from the show, trying to figure out if the underclass.
Well, this is why we got you, Lucy. We wanted to go straight to the chase. You know what? I have been so excited to speak KOW. Like, let's just do it now while it's fresh. Because if I wait a month from now, it's going to be like, it happened.
Well,
and,
yeah, this is the thing. I mean, I usually write the report the day after, but I've just been really busy.
Well, because you're popular now. Listen. Last year when we had you on, it was like different. It was like, well, when's KOW going to come back? Odyssey was the new company, and it was like we were going back in old matches, looking at the triple threat ladder match for the Showcase Championship when 2-Bit was champion. Obviously, we went back in Rick and Sheriff Hill, but so listen, you're popular. I can't blame you now. Like I told you, and I told you this would happen.
I mean, what can I say? She's just too nice. That's
I don't know about that, but listen, when I speak about Brian Anderson, you might have difference of opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a man who divides opinions.
But we'll certainly see. I mean, obviously, I could certainly see that once again, Keenan finds a way here, and we'll get to the Showcase Championship again here in a few minutes. And Kieran jumps into it's a very nice name for a championship. Showcase sounds classy. It's almost to me like our version of the Intercontinental title. Think of that's kind of how I
Yeah.
see the Showcase Trophy. And he says, "Hey, he saw the opportunity, he took it. Respect to that man's choices to take that win." Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I
I
guess.
mean, yeah, this is what I was going to say. So I think so. The underclass didn't interfere in this match, so props to Keenan for that. He
Well, Keenan can,
obviously
like I said, Keenan can go. Keenan can really
yes,
go in the ring. I mean, he's right up there. He's one of the
yeah,
better wrestlers around.
exactly, yeah, he is, and he definitely showed that in this match. It was really high energy from the start, which obviously you expect that from fatal four way matches, but especially with these four
These
wrestlers.
four especially, because Lucas
Yeah,
Neon, obviously, we know him being the former champion. Big Guns Joe is like everywhere. I feel like right now Big Guns Joe is wrestling somewhere. Then you've
yeah,
got
he
Dynamite
probably
Lee
is.
Dawson, who's another really nice up and coming wrestler. So these four, in a way, it was kind of like a dream match almost. Like you said, it was kind of like a dream match.
Yeah, and it was interesting that Dynamite Lee got added in at the last minute. Obviously, KOW management thought he deserved a match after Taylor West refused him a match, and it says a lot about him that they were willing to put him in this championship match. Um, I mean, what a upset it would have been if he came away with the victory. And to be fair, he was quite close on a few occasions, and the fans responded really well to him. Even though he only debuted at the last show, they've really got behind him. They were really vocal.
I could see that. You know what? I could see the way he comes across in the ring. I could see what he brings to the table. Cloud9, the lounge. Certainly, those in Barrow could definitely take a liking to him. They certainly are not taking a liking to Big Guns Joe. That I know for sure. They're definitely not taking a liking to Big Guns Joe, and obviously Keenan, our current showcase champion. And I'll get to the main event here, and let's do it actually now because I really want to spend a lot of time on Rick and RPD, and certainly Mr. Aidenson because he just came on last night and he's going to be on again. And we'll get to that in a little while. But let's get to the tag team championship, the tables match. We had Andre Decker on. I think it was about a little over a week ago now. We had Mr. Decker on. We spoke about this match, and I was kind of surprised about the outcome here that the Freak Show were able to retain the championships. And I thought it was a foregone conclusion that the Freak Show were going to lose these titles. Decker and Logan, now that they were going to get that match finally, that they were going to finally get those championships back, especially for Andre Decker. I've been speaking about Andre Decker getting his tag team championship back in KOW. I feel like since COVID started, practically. I mean, literally. I mean, I feel like that's how long I've been speaking about it. But that was not to be the case here, Lucy. So talk about it, how it all unfolded. So I guess in a way, the fans sort of got a draw. It was another draw because the underclass don't have all the belts, and the Freak Show are defending KOW's honor. They continue to do that, but talk about how it all unfolded.
Yeah, so when you said that you were surprised at the outcome, yeah, I was surprised too.
I know you
On
wrote about it. I think we were
Yeah,
all
yeah,
under
yeah.
the conclusion that Andre Decker and Logan, that now the time was finally coming for the underclass to reign and run roughshod over KOW.
Mhm. Yeah, I was quite convinced, especially after Keenan won his match and Two Bit won his match. I thought, well, this will give Decker and Logan the confidence they need to go and win, because they're not going to want to let Two Bit down. But it didn't work out that way. So the match was obviously about as chaotic as you would expect from a tables match, a tag team tables match, no less. So there was lots of bodies flying around. The Cloud9's got like a balcony, so the action went all the way upstairs and all the way back down again. A fan had a Freak Show sign, and Carter grabbed it and gave Decker a big crack off the head with it. Nightmare even, yeah, Nightmare even let a fan get a punch in on Logan.
Really? Who would have
Yes,
guessed that? Who would have guessed that?
and Logan went, and then he went crashing through the fire exit door. It was really, there's quite a lot of things going on at once. So it was quite good. It was like the fans upstairs had their own little personal show to watch, and the fans downstairs had something different. It was quite fun. But yeah, so there was a lot of tables obviously lying around. So there was a lot of chaotic moments where Decker nearly fell in onto the table from the apron, but he didn't, and he managed to hold on. Quite good balance to Decker. And yeah, because Nightmare drop kicked him, but he managed to hold on. Will Carter went for a massive power bomb, but that didn't work out. So in the closing moments of the match, the underclass tried to set up for the double superplex through both tables from the corners, which would have been a massive moment in itself.
In KOW history, think about a double suplex into the table. I mean, that would have been in KOW lore.
Exactly. But I think this moment that actually did happen will be in KOW lore forever. So the Freak Show, Carter and Nightmare, they cleverly reversed it so that they could powerbomb Decker and Logan through the tables. So they both went through at the exact same time, opposite sides of the ring. And what a moment that was. And I think it was just kind of out of the blue. And it just kind of shows how quick and nimble the Freak Show are.
They reversed them back into the tables.
Yes. It was quite the moment. And I wasn't expecting it at all. It was so fast. It just goes to show how fast and crafty the Freak Show are. And that's exactly why they're tag team champions. And the roof blew off Cloud9. Everyone was so happy.
Oh, I'm sure that we would have heard, "This is awesome," a KOW. There must have been some chance going on because, I mean, you said something interesting. And Kieran jumps in and says, a team called the Freak Show defended the championships in a tag team table match. That sounds coincidentally perfectly chaotic for them. Not surprised to hear they retained. But we were surprised. And this is why you said something so interesting about them being clever. See, I didn't think they were going to be that clever. I didn't think everything that the Freak Show went through, the unhinged Will Carter's injury, Nightmare, what happened to him and his hair. Obviously, the fact that the Freak Show, they've been champions and people kind of look at them and discounted them as champions because they haven't really defended these titles at all. I mean, so it was almost like a foregone conclusion. The underclass were going to find their way to retaining and getting their championships and all the gold. So I'm surprised that you actually said that the Freak Show were clever enough to find a way to win and retain the tag team championships.
I mean, I think the Freak Show, they're not clever in the way that the underclass are, in that they'll use the numbers game. They'll get sneaky people to come to the ring when no one's looking, whatever. It's like a different type of cleverness. I think I'd perhaps call it ring awareness. They know where they are at all times. They know where the other is at all times. They've been a tag team for God knows how long. I don't know exactly how many years.
It's been a while.
Yeah, whereas you've got Decker and Logan on the other side of the ring who had never teamed before.
I brought that up with Andre Decker, the unforgettable Andre Decker. I know I brought that up with him 2 months ago with Logan being a partner. But he said, no, Logan, I'm telling you, Logan adds a new element to the underclass. 2-Bit doesn't pick people that he doesn't think can lose. I mean, it just seemed to me that the confidence was really with the underclass. The underclass were pretty much going to declare themselves that they were no longer the underclass. They were the upper class. They were supposed to be the upper class here, Lucy, and having all the gold here.
Yeah, perhaps the underclass need to change the name to the elite if they'd won all the belts, but they didn't, so they'll still be the underclass.
Yeah, they're not the elite, that's for sure.
I think Decker, he's always got this cocky confidence about him wherever he goes. Maybe it's just gone to his head a bit. Being in a faction with the heavyweight champion and the showcase champion is bound to make you confident. I'm not knocking him for being confident. Obviously, you've got to be in wrestling, but there's a certain point where it becomes arrogance, I think. And I think that's maybe what spelled disaster in this match. I think they perhaps became complacent, thinking, yeah, we've got this in the bag. Oh yeah, we're going for these massive superplexes. Yeah, we've got it in the bag, and they just kind of lost their focus in that moment. And that's, you can be as confident as you want, but you've got to match it in the ring. I mean, it was a great match, and I'm not saying that Decker is a bad wrestler and he didn't perform in the match or anything, but it's all about.
He'll be back on. You don't think I want to say Andre Decker's a bad wrestler. He's on almost every month in a regular spot, so you know that Andre Decker will certainly be on, especially before June the 18th at Odyssey when it comes to Mutiny, and I'll get to the other two matches in a second, but I want to ask you this question when it comes to the underclass, and now that the fact that yes, 2-Bit and Keenan retained, but they didn't get the tag team championships. Do you consider it a loss for the underclass in terms of they failed this past weekend? Do you feel like it's a wash between those defending KOW in the underclass? And also, what does it mean then for Decker and Logan? Because, I mean, we expected that at the end of the day, Decker was going to have his gold back. So walk me through your thoughts on all those questions.
Well, is it a loss for the underclass? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, you walk away with the main championship in the company and the other singles championship in the company that is equally as prestigious. And I think, yeah, they can take it as kind of like a half victory if they want, but I don't think Two-Bit's exactly the most optimistic thinking person in the world. I just think that he is going to be angry at Logan and Decker for not pulling it out of the bag. And I think I haven't mentioned this yet, but Sherry Steele came to the ring and said the underclass are banned from ringside, and to make sure they don't come out, I'm going to sit here and, watch the curtain. So if they come out, I'll stop them. So that put them off coming out to the ring. So they didn't have that aspect that they normally have, the element of surprise, the percentage, statistical advantage. So they can take this as a loss or a victory. It depends how they choose to look at it. But if I know anything about Two-Bit, he'll probably be, he's a prize fighter. He's probably going to be really angry, but he can be
He's
happy
always
in
angry. When
himself.
have we known Two-Bit not to be angry? Lucy,
Yeah.
we've had him on here 3 times. He's been angry. He's more angry each time he's on. I mean, Two-Bit and not being angry, I mean, that would, like, to me, almost like the sky is falling.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true. And it's disappointing for Decker and Logan because where do they like you asked, like where do they go from here? Not really sure if they warranted a rematch because they lost clean.
I don't know. I just feel like that this was supposed to be all set up. It's sort of like some interesting questions, sort of in reverse. What happens with the War Machine, Craig Collins? What happens with the unforgettable Andre Decker and Logan? I mean, this was all supposed to be set up for Craig Collins to get his championship back and Andre Decker to get his tag team championship match. But those were the reasons that did not happen that Lucy has described. And these are reasons why we're also always excited to speak with Lucy. You need to follow Lucy. I can't stress this enough. Like her new Facebook page. We got to get her more likes. She's 140 something. So let's get her more likes. Definitely do that on her page. Lucy Symes also writes on Twitter. Lucy Syme01 on Instagram, Knockout W on Facebook, also KO_wrestling Twitter, K_O_wrestling on Instagram. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you like what you hear from us on Facebook, please give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. Happy that many people are now liking our page. We got like 30 or 40 new likes in the last week and a half. Very, very happy about that. If you like our content, we do a lot of wrestling coverage here, sportnarium.com/player. And also, we'll have more coverage here of professional wrestling here throughout the week. Thursday, we have the GTM World Champion, Jack Johnson. He'll talk about his victory at Judgment Day, also in controversial fashion here, against the Vigilante of Pro Wrestling, Bentley. Friday, we will have a tag team showdown at 9:30 p.m. British Standard Time, 4:30 Eastern Time with the CCW Tag Team Champions, the Working Class Militia, GT Ministries, the Educators, the Modern Day Mafia, also Wildfire. Nate Reese will be in the house. You know him also from Odyssey Pro Wrestling, so a lot of coverage here. Also, Goliath will be with us here at some point Monday afternoon, New York time, Monday evening, UK time. We'll work out the details for sure. For Monday, before then, we'll announce, and we are talking all things related here to the world of KOW and Odyssey Pro Wrestling with one of my favorites, that is Lucy Simons. Lucy, I want to get to the match here. I'm going to save Brian Adenson for last. That way, we'll just save it for last. I don't know if it's the best for last. I don't know if it's the worst for last, but we'll save it certainly for after this match. And that is, of course, the natural-born fighter, R.P. Davis versus the Cumbrian outlaw, Rick Marcus. Such an intriguing match. We all know the relationship that these two individuals have. Born ready, everything that is going on here. And certainly this was a match that had so many references here, so many things. If you were just a wrestling fan in general, you would have appreciated it. It was almost like, in a lot of ways, I feel like this was a passing of the torch in some ways of KOW. I think about this match in some ways. Maybe they came at it from two different sides of the coin, but I just see something where I see the future of KOW changing hands a little bit after what we heard post match. But Lucy, you were there. You got to walk me through how it all went down. And between the natural born fighter, RP Davis, and the Cumbrian outlaw, Rick Marcus, obviously two of our favorites in Sportswire radio history.
This was my favorite match of the night. And I mean, that's saying quite a lot. What a stacked card it was. I enjoyed it.
Man, did we have some great ones, Lucy. This is saying something. And this is usually saying something because we talk a lot about KOW, but this card, and I said this, I know a couple different times before you came on, literally they all were main events.
Yes, they were. And I enjoyed every single match. So this isn't to take away from any other match, but this was definitely my favorite match. And it opened the card, so it set the tone just right. But you had these two men who clearly had respect for each other. They shook hands before the match, and what we saw was just kind of like a showcase of everything that these two men wanted to bring to the ring in their careers as a whole. It felt like a culmination of a lot of different things. You had lots of chain wrestling going on at first. You had limb tagging, things like this, but then it was like a shift in the match, and Rick Marcus went for like a 5-knuckle shuffle, like he was ripping off John Cena, but then he just went for the kick instead of the punch to the face. So that was quite funny. But then it was from there the references to older wrestling kind of carried on, and it felt like these two had took everything that inspires them and put it into one match. So RPD went for a people's elbow.
I saw that on Instagram. Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, Rick Marcus totally ruined it with a stunner, but that was still an awesome moment. But then RPD followed up with a rock bottom, so it was like Rock versus Austin, just so cool to see. And then Marcus was trapped in a sharpshooter by RPD, and I've always thought this. Rick Marcus does kind of look like Stone Cold Steve Austin. So seeing him trapped in a sharpshooter,
a lot better 6-pack because Stone Cold's in great shape, but Rick Marcus, and I continue to say it, Rick Marcus and Lord Damian Stone was there. Rick Marcus, the Cumbrian outlaw, has like negative body fat. He literally has like negative body fat.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, he's in the shape of his life, and so is RPD, to be fair. But I just think Rick Marcus, just because not just because he's bald, I think he genuinely does look like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah,
so,
he does. He's got the face. He's got that physique. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
So him being locked in the sharpshooter and trying to get to the ropes was like a surreal moment. I was like, what am I witnessing right now? This is happening right in front of me, and all he needed was the splatter of blood on his head, and it would have been completed.
I'm picturing Bret Hart and Stone Cold right now, WrestleMania 13. I'm picturing where I was at my couch with my two brothers growing up in Brooklyn watching that. So I'm actually picturing that 25 years later. Who would have guessed?
That's exactly what it was like. I mean, yeah. But then, Marcus actually managed to make it to the rope. And I mean, the match continued. They were obviously really evenly matched, obviously got a lot of respect for each other. RPD went for the Superman punch and he missed. Marcus managed to hit his spear, but instead of the cover, he was going for some sort of slam, and RPD reversed it and hit his Superman punch, and I thought the match was over, but Rick Marcus actually
kicked out. It was like 1, 2, and it was like 2 and like 4/5, and he got the hand up. You picture that?
Yeah, it was really, really close, and I'm not sure. Have I seen someone kick out of the Superman punch? Perhaps Ryan Hunter at last Odyssey. So I'm not quite. I can't remember, but that was quite the heart-stopping moment. And then RPD looked like he was going for his Superman punch again, tuning up the band in the corner. But Marcus, he wouldn't get up. He was in the middle of the ring, and he wouldn't get up. He seemed like he was knocked out or something, and he managed to pull himself up. And he looked at RPD and he said, "Just finish this." So then RPD ran in with the Superman punch and ended the match then and there, and that's how RPD won. And I mean, it felt like Rick Marcus was ending the match on his own terms. It was like that moment he kind of realized that he'd been bested, and there was nothing he could do. And ultimately that's what gave RPD the victory, and they hugged, and Rick got a standing ovation.
Which is
And
very shocking for those that are hearing this, like a Lord Damien
yeah,
Stone that's just getting new to KOW, considering the history that the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus has. That's
yeah.
shocking, Lucy. Very shocking what we just heard.
Well, yeah, it was, and I feel like we talked about this at the last show where the fans are a bit medium on Rick Marcus because they hated him before the pandemic, but afterwards they've maybe seen him in Odyssey, or they've maybe forgot what he did, and they just they think he's a good wrestler or whatever. And some people want to boo him because they remember what he's done. A lot of people want to cheer him because they think he's a nice guy and they respect him. And it was very much like that here. I mean, RPD was the favorite by far because everyone loved him, but it's such a mixed reaction for Rick Marcus, which when I
Mm.
put on my Instagram, he's a polarizing figure. That when he did the five knuckle shuffle, it was just like John Cena. Some people hate him, some people love him. It was just like that. And after the ring, after the match, Rick Marks was still in the ring, and he got on the mic, and he said, and right, you're not going to believe me, but I remember thinking in the middle of this match, this feels like it could be the last match for Rick Marcus. Like, it had that kind of special feel about it.
Mm.
And then he got on the mic and said, "Yeah, this might be the last time I wrestle for KW." So he's not retiring or anything. It's not a definite end, but he just says, I might not be back. And if I don't, I just want to say thank you to you all, because the best fans. I've had some amazing matches and some amazing feuds, but none other with my longtime rival Sheriff Steele, who we then invited to the ring to share a beer with him. And he said, "Look, I still don't like you. I know you don't like me, but for old time's sake, let's have a beer." And yeah, I thought we were going to see a stunner, but we didn't. Surprisingly, we didn't. And it was really, really emotional, to say the least. I mean, after a match like that, to then go and drop that bombshell, I mean, Rick Marcus did have the crowd in the palm of his hand, to be honest.
I'm kind of sad, and I remarked on Instagram about this. I'm kind of sad even hearing that because take a step back, the fact that you just told us that Rick Marcus and Commissioner Steele in the ring together sharing a moment. It's almost like a passing of the torch, like I said, because
Yeah.
Steele's not wrestling anymore in KOW. You revealed about Rick. I mean, this is the last dance, it sounds like, and RPD's kind of just come in here in a short time, and it feels like that with Steele and Rick Marcus going, when you think about KOW and the Mount Rushmore, I mean, I think 2 of the 3 or 4 on that Mount Rushmore, right, are Rick Marcus, the Cumbrian Outlaw, and Commissioner / Sheriff Steele. I mean, you could probably throw Craig Collins on there. I mean, it's debatable after that. Do you throw 2-Bit on there? Do you throw Nightmare on there? I mean, it's pretty much like in KOW history. You start thinking about names. I mean, do you put Chris Ridgway on there because it's Chris Ridgway? Maybe you put Chris Ridgway on the Mount Rushmore. I mean, I can't really say Pete Dunne or his new name now because he only really wrestled very briefly in KOW. But the point is, 2 of the definite 4 names on the Mount Rushmore, 4 or 5 names, it's definitely Steele and Marcus. And they're not wrestlers. I mean,
yeah, it is. It is a shame. I was just like the first time I watched the KOW show, they were the 2 biggest, kind of most popular figures, and their matches were huge deals. And yeah, I was caught off guard by Rick's announcement, and I think it. Yeah, I felt. I definitely say sad at the fact that he says he might not be in the ring in KOW again. I mean, it would be the same without him. He's just one of those wrestlers that he can make you love him or hate him. He can be really aggressive, and he's a brilliant wrestler. And he just went and proved it. I mean, it was the best possible way to finish it if that is it. Like I said, it was just a picture perfect match. I don't think he could have wished for a better last match.
I don't think he's going to. When you think about KOW history, I know we've done this, and I won't spend too far in the past because I realize we've got time, and I got to get through Brian Aidenson. I want to get a brief synopsis on Mutiny because we'll have you back most likely before the 18th. So I just want to wet the palate on that. But when we go back into KOW history, I have a feeling that when we revise our top 10 or if we add a few more matches, this match is probably going to be in that discussion because of just everything that went down here. I mean, and Lord Damien Stone has a great comment here, which I want to get into. He says, I first saw the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus when he debuted at Target Wrestling in Carlisle and was blown away. It was great to see him again at Redemption. Wish him all the best in the future. Yeah, you know what? We spoke about that the first time I had on the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus was right after RPD, and we spoke about Target Wrestling and the fact it's kind of somber here tonight, thinking about the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus not being in KOW. It's kind of somber. I got to be honest with you, Lucy. I think people are gonna have very melancholy like feelings about that.
Definitely. I totally agree. I just found it, yeah, like I've already said, sad. And I think everyone around me in Cloud9 kind of felt the same way. Everyone just didn't really know how to react. They were just like, no, what, really? Are you being for real? Is this a joke? Like, and he's obviously had some amazing matches in his career, not just in KOW. I don't think this is the last time we'll see him in a wrestling ring. I think I'm not exactly sure, but might see him in Odyssey again. I hope. I hope it's not my last time seeing him in the ring.
Well, in Odyssey, as far as I know, I had it on my calendar notes. He was on the card in Odyssey. I can't speak for KOW. He's actually in a really, really big match at Odyssey Pro Wrestling. So I don't think in Odyssey his days are numbered by a long shot. But
no, I don't think so.
In the lounge here, it may be the case. But obviously, those are things here. And obviously, we've got a comment in here, of course, from our very, very dear friend, Mr. ALP, giving us something. Rick Marcus with the hearts. And, of course, love the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus. Always been one of my favorites. Had the chance to speak with him many, many times here on Sportswire Radio. And truly one of my favorites when I think about Sportswire Radio. Of course, ALP is one of my favorites all the time. And, of course, Lucy as well. And just KOW is such a special place. And shout outs as always to Cloud9 in the lounge here. But I got to get to it because we got into RPD. I think you know where, because there's one match left in KOW. So I kind of think you might have an idea who I'm going to talk about next. And that is the Ronin Brian Adenson. Now, when we had him on, he was supposed to wrestle Shawnee. But I know obviously there was a adjustment, to say the least. And he was in the ring with somebody I've actually covered here. He has been a big-time name, obviously, in Future Shock Pro Wrestling and the LWF most notably as well. And that is Lachlan Sharp. And that's another match that I could certainly say would be a main event in a lot of other territories. But Lucy, set the tables for us in this match. I have a feeling this was definitely a banger because I know both guys have gotten to know, obviously, Brian a little bit more. But tell us how it all unfolded and where we left off, because the last I had checked and had thought that the Ronin Brian Adenson very well could be somebody challenging Keenan for that Showcase Championship, but that's not the case. And set the tables, though, in the meantime for us on how the Ronin Brian Adenson dispatched Lachlan Sharp.
Yeah, I've seen Lachlan Sharp wrestle once before at the one LWF show that I've been to.
Oh, you did? You went to one LWF show. When was that LWF show you went to? We didn't know that. You almost got to tell us there.
It was the one with the women's main event.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was. What a great show! And I got to see Lachlan Sharp there. That was the only time I've seen him wrestle, I think.
The international sensation, Lachlan Sharp. Yeah. The Aussie Lachlan Sharp.
Yes, and he's certainly brought that level of charisma and charm to KOW. The fans weren't really familiar with him because they hadn't seen him before, but I think they got behind him because no one really likes Brian Adenson because he's so cocky and he's so full of confidence, which, yes, I'm going to say it again, it's fine to have confidence, but yeah, he was really cocky, and it kind of came back to bite him. I think Lachlan Sharp out-wrestled him on a few occasions in this match, especially right at the beginning. Adenson was using what looked like closed fist strikes, which I found quite ironic. But, that's besides the point. It was a good match. There was a lot of submission holds and technical wrestling, which I always love to see. And at the end of the match, Adenson locked in a submission hold, and ultimately Lachlan Sharp got knocked out. So that just goes to show what, the technical ability that Brian Adenson got. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. Me and him don't really see eye to eye, but
I know he's definitely made that case clear here. He's definitely compared you more or less to Lisa Simpson, calling you Lucy Simpson.
Yeah. He thinks that's so funny. I mean, he's getting kind of old. But it is what it is. But not to take
Right.
anything away from him. We know he's a black belt martial artist, and he showed that in
Yes.
this match. Yeah,
Yes.
Andy, I totally agree. It was a great match. And ultimately, Edinson came out on top. But he wasn't very happy with the victory. And he left the ring, and I was like, oh great, that's over. But he came back in the ring, and he got on the microphone, and he was like, oh, he insulted the fans, um, and he called for Sheriff Steele. He said, look, you made me a promise. I want to fight RPD again. Um, he said, if I win this match, I get to face RPD, right? Sheriff Steele eventually came out. He took a while, and Brian Ensign was like, well, I'll hold the show ransom if he
Yes,
doesn't
he
come
spoke
out,
about that last night with us.
which was which was quite funny. So Sheriff Steele eventually came out, and he said, listen, you've been in this ring before, Sheriff Steele, and I respect that, but what I don't respect is you not sticking to your word, so give me a match with RPD. And Sheriff Steele said, well, I said if you beat Shawnee, you could have RPD, but you didn't. So you're not getting to face RPD, because RPD is actually getting a shot at the Showcase Championship against Keenan at the next show. So read the small print. And it certainly sounds as if Brian Ensign's the one who needs new glasses this time, not me, because he didn't read the small print. But I can understand his frustration, So yeah, he's obviously not happy with that.
But if there was, though, that possibility, and we spoke about this here, you're referring to, obviously, and ALP chimes in and says he loves the Aidenson versus Sharp, lots of great technical wrestling and striking, as you mentioned, from two top quality wrestlers. And he also chimes in here and says Brian needs to stop picking on Lucy. I mean, he should just get your name right. I mean, at this point, we love Brian, but I mean, we've had Lucy on here more than Brian. I mean, so, but I mean, he was promised something, though. I mean, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I do get it. I understand his frustration, but at the end of the day, Shawnee is a bit of a KOW legend, and that's just the contract.
But he
Lachlan
also
Sharp,
beat.
not
But see, I understand his point because he beat an even, in my opinion, a more impressive opponent than Lachlan Sharp right now. Lachlan Sharp. I mean, I've covered Lachlan Sharp. You mentioned the LWF. He's been in Future Shock Pro Wrestling, and Lord Damien Stone has a comment. I'll get to it in a second. But I mean, Lachlan Sharp, and I think, is a more impressive opponent that he beat. So that makes him automatically worthy of whether it's a rematch with RPD or a shot at Keenan, because that is a world championship like win.
I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, Lachlan Sharp is obviously a very experienced, very talented wrestler who is probably going to find a lot of success in KOW if he can catch a victory. And that's not to take away from him, but I think ultimately it's Sheriff Steele who makes the calls, and he thought that for some reason that unless Brian Ensign managed to beat Shawnee, he doesn't deserve to face RPD, and that's just the way it is. And I think if Brian Ensign's attitude hasn't helped him, if he wasn't so, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, because I don't want to say something nasty, but if he could be a bit nicer, he might have got that shot. That's just something to consider.
Well, I've got some comments in here which I think very well may address this, and I'm going to get to the next point, which what we addressed last night on Sportswire Radio. So let's get to the bottom of it. And here's Lord Damien Stone. Aidenson is cocky, but he can back it up too. Lachlan Sharp held his own very well. Would definitely love to see them again sometime down the road. Absolutely. I'd love to see Lachlan Sharp much more in KOW. Lachlan Sharp is a phenomenal performer. Lachlan Sharp is somebody that you want to pay as much pounds as possible when it comes to a Lachlan Sharp. So let's get to ALP here. So let's address these comments. So here we go. So he says here, in terms of KOW, Shawnee has been here since day one, has the best win-loss record in company history. Lachlan is an incredible wrestler, but a win against Lachlan doesn't hold as much weight as a win against Shawnee. Just my 2 cents, but Steele thinks similarly. Give me your thoughts on that, Lucy, because there's some fair points to bring up because Shawnee has been, and ALP spoke about this last time he was on the show, that Shawnee has been one of those performers in KOW history. He's a linchpin. Hasn't quite had the singles gold, but he's been in terms of KOW. He's been a guy that's been right there. He's been right there in terms of success. I mean, walk me through your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I totally get what Andy is saying, and that's kind of like what I was kind of trying to get at that before, but it's hard to articulate it because you don't want to take anything away from Lachlan Sharp. But yeah, I think Andy, you summed it up perfectly. It's in KOW terms, in context, it's all, Lachlan Sharp obviously successful in whatever other promotions, but the territories are individual. The fans have their favourite, and managers know who's got the best win-loss records. Shawnee has got the best, so that obviously holds a lot of weight. I guess that must be what Sheriff Steele had at the back of his mind, and it's unfortunate for Brian Edinson, but I can see both sides of the argument. But I tend not to side with Brian Edinson just because, he's just mean to me for no reason.
All right, so let me ask you then. I got two thoughts for you because I know ALP is listening, and I'm sure Steele, because Steele heard what we had to say last night, and Steele tweeted about it. So obviously, Steele's going to find a way, whether it's not now, certainly between now and I would assume the next couple of days. Let's say hypothetically, though, let's put on the thinking cap here. And I said this to Aidenson. He would have took the bait, he would have took the offer, but he wasn't crazy about it. But here's what I proposed. Showcase Championship, July 9th, Meltdown. Keenan's our reigning defending champion. Number one contender, natural born fighter RP Davis. But also make it interesting because the Ronin Brian Aidenson does have that win against Lachlan Sharp and does want unfinished business against RPD. Throw him in the mix there. What would you think about that? Triple threat. Keenan, RPD, Brian Aidenson.
I would love that match. Everyone loves a triple threat match. Just adds a little bit of extra spice to a one-on-one match that everyone loves.
If that was the possibility, because right now, Steele and ALP, they're not budging right now. ALP and Steele are not going to do it. They're not going to do it for their reasons. And to be fair, RPD's got to win against Rick. Rick is a KOW legend, and Brian acknowledged that. So, I mean, to be fair, if our management, from that standpoint, even though I think there could be outside forces here, when it comes to management still, I mentioned Cloud9 The Lounge, I mentioned TNT Records, and RPD is a very, very big name. He is somebody that's marketable. But if I'm Brian Aidenson and my choice is no match with RPD at Meltdown, or triple threat, Keenan, RPD, and himself, Showcase, I think you take it. What do you think?
Well, of course, if you're Brian Edinson, you're going to take a championship match. I don't really think he cares who it's against. But let's think about this for a second, though.
All right.
Brian Edinson has been defeated by RPD. So what's he really done to prove he deserves to be in that match? He's already been beaten by one man in the match, and the other man is the champion. So I'm not really sure where I stand on that. I would love to see that match.
RPD, though. He said he beat RPD, though.
Yeah, yes, but he didn't beat RPD, though. You know,
he's saying he's 2-0 in KOW. He said last night he was 2-0 in KOW.
He can say whatever he wants, but the record shows what it shows.
Okay, so there's certainly points on that. That's fair.
I think there's one thing I can add to this, and I can't really go into it, but
okay.
I can reveal that I did have a conversation with Brian Edinson after the show, and something transpired during that conversation.
And we don't know about last night? Is that what you're trying to say, that we won't know about that right now until now in July 9th?
Yeah, so I'm not sure when the footage of that will be released.
Okay.
But you got to keep your eyes open for that because there's very interesting developments.
Well, please tag me on it. Please tag us on it because I have a follow-up point to that. So here we go from ALP. So here we go. So his understanding is that Steele approached Aidenson after the match and made him an offer regarding his match at the next show. Lucy was also there. I can't go into any more details than that, but I believe also the guys from Parts Unknown, who also are part of the Sportswire Radio family, have the footage, and it will be released soon. So that
Yes.
basically means stay tuned.
Yes, that is what I was referring to. So yeah, stay tuned on that. All the
Okay, so
questions.
let me ask you a follow-up, one more follow-up on Brian Anderson before I get a quick rundown of what we can expect with Odyssey for the last 15 to 20 minutes with you. So let me ask you then, because I got ALP here, and I know somebody's going to tune in and, like I said, pass it over to somebody. What would you think, though, if we're going to work on it between now and July the 9th, face-to-face, to nip it all in the bud here? The Natural Born Fighter, RP Davis, The Ronin, Brian Nadenson live, face-to-face here on Sportswire Radio. What your thoughts are on it? Because we still haven't heard yet from the Natural Born Fighter, RP Davis, directly. Now, he's saying now he'll bring it. So we're assuming he's going to confirm because it's the Natural Born Fighter, RP Davis. But going back to it, what would you think here? Live, face-to-face, Sportswire Radio, Brian Nadenson, RPD. What do you think?
Well, I know I would definitely tune in. I think it'll
Okay,
make
well,
for
that's
interesting
fair. I
viewing.
appreciate that. I appreciate the tuning in. I certainly appreciate that.
I remember last night I watched a little bit of the interview with Brian Anderson, and RPD commented in the Facebook chat saying, you know, I'm not hard to find. Why don't you say it to my face? So RPD's ready for it. Brian Anderson, whether he's ready for it, I'm not sure, but I think that would be interesting viewing.
I think it will be. Something tells me you get the popcorn ready,
Yeah.
get the tea out. I think Mother Sue's going to be ready for that. She'll make a meal for it.
Yes.
You should love Mother Sue, obviously. Cannot thank enough Mother
Love
Sue
her.
for all this support. Something tells me Louise will be out watch. Somebody tells me somebody will find a way here and even go further. And the Ronin Brian said, well, RPD wasn't there. He wasn't in the dressing room. And then RPD famously commented, said he was at the bar celebrating becoming the number one contender for the Showcase Championship. And then the Ronin Brian Adenson said, well, it's an injustice. And then ALP said it here. He's ready to see it. So basically, something tells me here between now and the next month or so, we're going to see mano a mano on Sportswire Radio. One screen, RPD. The other screen here, the Natural Born Fighter, RP Davis. These are also reasons why you need to follow KOW. K_O_ wrestling Instagram. Twitter, KO_wrestling. Facebook, Knockout W. Also, Lucy Simon writes on Twitter. Also, her page, Lucy Simon's Pro Wrestling Journalist. Lucy Sime 01 on Instagram, because I can promise you, if you like what you hear from KOW, you are going to like even more on all their social media channels. Lucy Simon's social media channels, because KOW, it really is one of the premier wrestling channels. Listen, forget about WWE, forget about AEW, forget about Impact, forget about MLW. We want to talk here KOW. It's all about KOW. Just like it's all about the Benjamins, it's all about Cloud9, the Lounge, all about the great things that KOW is doing. I'm ready. I'm fired up for July. I think this is one of the more shorter times here we've got between events. I know we had one in March, and it was about a 2-month one. This one's a little shorter, so I got a feeling here our palates are going to be wet. Something tells me the unforgettable Andre Decker is going to be on here. We talked about RPD. We talked about the Ronin Brian Adenson. Something tells me Lucy will be back. ALP, we know, is definitely going to be back. I mean, there's a lot of coverage here. I'm very, very excited. We got another comment in here, and certainly says here from ALP, on the road to the 10th anniversary show. It's going to be our biggest year ever, topped off by what will be our greatest show of all time. What does that mean, you think, Lucy, for you and being involved in KOW? Because you got involved in it right before COVID and the pandemic, but to see that this company, there's a lot of companies I speak about, and I'll speak a few minutes on Odyssey before we get out of here, but KOW, through everything, through the test of time, all the trials and tribulations, we're going on to year 10. This has got to be a special thing.
Absolutely. And yeah, ALP got on the mic at Redemption and said this. He said, you know, we've got a few more shows left, and ultimately the 10th anniversary show is going to be our greatest show. And, you know, I believe him. I'm convinced. I think the anniversary show every year is always, it's kind of like KOW's WrestleMania, you know, it's like their flagship show. They put so much effort and time into building incredible stories and feuds to get behind for the fans to enjoy. And 10th anniversary. I mean, hitting double figures, what an amazing achievement that is. I haven't been with KOW since the start, but I kind of feel like I have, because it is such like a welcoming community, and you always feel so welcome when you're there. So to be a part of the 10th anniversary, yeah, it feels like it's going to be big, and we're months away yet. That's going to be in November.
It ain't
So
that far away. Well, today is
yeah,
May the 17th, right? So November's, what, 6 months away? I mean, that's nothing.
no, it'll creep up on us before we even know it. Um, so I think we all need to start getting emotionally prepared now.
Let's not shed tears yet, because we had the Los Lancadors one a little while
Yeah.
ago, and the serious Mr. B was like getting ready to cry about professional wrestling. So we'll save the tears for joy and for cheers and laughter and excitement coming up here in November, because something tells me here KOW 10th anniversary show is easily going to be a better show than WrestleMania 38.
Oh,
Easily a better show than
definitely.
Double or Nothing. It's going to be better than all of that times 10. New Japan, MLW, NWA, whatever it might be. It's all going to be better than that. I can't wait. ALP streams. Also, please follow ALP also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We doesn't have Instagram, but Twitter and Facebook, definitely follow him. He's always doing something great. ALP has been one of our biggest supporters, and KOW gets it, because look at what they've done with you, the Parts Unknown guys. KOW is such a welcoming environment. Cloud9, The Lounge, and TNT Records, everybody who supports KOW. So KOW really does a great job in bringing people involved and bringing them into the show, making them feel a part of it. That's what it's all about. A lot of companies out there that they're not looking at it that way. They look at what you've done, Parts Unknown people. Look at even the talent that we've had here in KOW's history. Tubit. Look at Keenan now, Will Carter, Lucas. Yeah, it's a long list. RPD's now a part of the family. RPD. I mean, listen, we got some great talent. Brian Adenson, Lachlan Sharp, we hope will be here more. Big Gun Joe. Big Gun Joe is everywhere. I mean, what a roster that we have here in KOW. I cannot stress that enough here. But Odyssey Pro Wrestling, I want to spend a few minutes on, because we're getting ready for June 18th here in Mutiny, and set the tables for us very quickly for the next 5 or 10 minutes on what we can expect when it comes to Odyssey.
Oh, the next Odyssey show is one big card. I mean, there is 7 matches, which is a lot to begin with, and there is so many huge rivalries going into it. I mean, Ryan Hunter versus Rick Marcus for a start for the Odyssey Championship. What an incredible match! Ryan Hunter portrayed everyone at the last show, and it was one of the most devastating moments I've ever witnessed. And Rick Marcus had to come out to save RPD from the wrath of Ryan Hunter, who aligned himself with Chris Booker
Shocking.
and
Very
Decker.
shocking.
Truly shocking, like genuinely very, very, very shocking. So Rick Marcus is looking to get some revenge for RPD against Ryan Hunter in this match. He's got his chance to cement himself on top of the company. So what a match that is going to be. And that's not even to mention Andre Decker and RP Davis.
Oh, my goodness. I feel like we've been speaking about that match, or this prospect about that match, for like, I don't know, 20 years at this point. I feel like forever. RPD and the unforgettable Andre Decker. I mean, finally. I mean, are these guys going to kill each other? That's going to, listen, I hate to say this, but forget about Russia and Ukraine. Forget about, listen, a nuclear war. I mean, RPD and the unforgettable Andre Decker, that literally, you might have to get them both out of Morecambe to just finish that fight, because something tells me even if whoever one of them is down, they're going to still look to fight. I mean, that's going to be an epic fight of proportions that we may never see again.
This is probably what it's got to be one of the feuds of the year of I was going to say British wrestling, but I think just any wrestling company. It's just there's so much bad blood, there's so much story, and these two really don't like each other, and they have a history in the ring and outside of the ring, but they've not faced one-on-one yet, so that is going to be a barn burner to say the least.
I think it might be a lot more than a barn burner. You think about this, right, for a second, because I could spend a whole hour on this. And these guys, it's been for the better part of, today is May the 17th. It's been a better part of almost a year that they've been at it in Odyssey. It's
Mm-hmm.
been like a long time coming between these two guys. They really don't like each other. I mean, they really don't like each other. We've seen Marcus and Steele kind of bury the hatchet. But these guys don't like each other. I mean, I don't even think that these guys would go to each other's funerals. That's how it is between these two guys. No, I'm dead serious. There are certain wrestlers, and deep down, you know that there's a respect. You know that there's a love. You know that there's a friendship. With Andre Decker and the unforgettable Andre Decker and the spotlight with the natural born fighter RP Davis, everything that those camps have been involved in, I'll be honest, I don't think they would even send flowers to each other's funeral. That's how I really think about these two. I know I'm not wrong here, Lucy.
No, you're definitely not wrong. That is, yeah, I couldn't have summed it up any better. These two, they just, yeah, I mean, you can't sum it up better than that. There's just so much going into this match, and there's so much at stake as well. They both use such big fighting words that neither of them can afford to lose.
I don't know. Something tells me here you got Ryan Hunter and the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus for the World Championship. And that's going to be a doozy. We've seen obviously it's basically going to be born ready, almost double main event here because you got Ryan Hunter and the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus. Who knows what's going to happen there, right? It's a whole new Ryan. Everybody was shocked about what happened. We've talked about that, beating it with a dead horse. The unforgettable Andre Decker and RPD. I just said everything there. And another match that I find so intriguing is this new team of Scum versus Synergy. Walk me through that very quickly. We'll run it down real quick just on the matches and then before we get closing thoughts. Give me Scum and Synergy. What do you think here?
Yeah, we had 2-Bit and Scotty Rock teaming up after neither of them really found their groove in KOW. And they teamed up at the last show. And they managed to defeat Lucas Neon and Nick Cutter. And now we've got Synergy, who are probably the biggest tag team in KOW, the most popular, I would say. So when these two face off, I think you've just got two very different teams. Synergy are just huge; they're powerhouses. Whereas Scum, they're more, Scotty Rock is a bit of a high flyer. 2-Bit's a scrappy fighter. And physically, 2-Bit and Scotty Rock are very much smaller. So that's going to play into it. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting match. And I think that'll have implications for hopefully future tag team championships in Odyssey.
Absolutely. And speaking of, that's the magic of live radio. Now I'm good. I was choking on the fact that the next match I was about to speak about because I'm so intrigued about it is actually Alexis Falcon and Tonga. These are really two of the premier women's, not just women's, but all of wrestlers around here. So very quickly, give me your thoughts for a short thought on Alexis Falcon and Tonga.
Yeah, this is another story that's actually been building since the start of Odyssey. Yep. And these two are there's a lot of bad blood. There's a lot of Tonga seemingly avoiding Alexis Falcon, not wanting to defend her championship against her because she pinned her. But we do well to remember that, it was because Gia Adams turned on Alexis that Tonga ended up getting that victory. Tonga's been a dominant and active champion, but Alexis Falcon's from Markham. The fans are behind her. They want her to win. So, yeah, I'm really, really, really looking forward to this match. I've been dying to see these two go one-on-one.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I shouldn't even say this, but I was tipped off by a wrestler in Odyssey Pro Wrestling about a year and a half ago. And this was about Alexis Falcon. And he told me, if there's any wrestler you're going to keep an eye on, it's Alexis Falcon. So Alexis Falcon, something tells me here, this is going to be a really good match. And I want to go with another match because I spoke about him a little while ago when it came to before you were on the air. That is the LWF's Nick Cutter, who certainly it's a different Mr. Cutter in the LWF, but in Odyssey Pro Wrestling, he's teaming with Lucas Neon against the Freak Show. And what can we expect here?
Well, Nick Cutter and Lucas Neon just haven't had any luck in Odyssey whatsoever. They've kind of, I hate to say this, but they've kind of been the punching bag. They've been trying their best against some really brutal opponents and haven't been able to come out on top. Whereas the Freak Show, they've had issues of their own. At the last show, they weren't successful against Sexy Kev and that long-standing feud. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I think we've seen from Isaiah Quinn, he wasn't very happy with Will Carter after that match.
Yes.
Even though it wasn't really his fault. So I'm not sure how that's going to play into this match.
Well, we'll certainly find out, and I'll save one more match for last because he's been on here a couple of different times. I think you may or may not know who I'm going to speak about, but we'll go with Sam Bailey and Rob Drake because that's going to be another match that's just what you call a quintessential grudge match, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's two of the biggest faces in Brit Wrestling, I would say. These two men, they want to pick up that W in Odyssey. Sam Bailey's not really had much luck so far, and I think he's out to prove himself, because he is one of the top and most respected names in Brit Rest. But Morecambe doesn't care about that. Morecambe don't like him.
No way. And then I want to get to somebody else here, and that is also the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera. I have to mention him, and he's going to, I guess, accompanying JJ Webb, and it'll be Big Guns Joe and also Sexy Kev. So give me your thoughts on what we can expect here. I'd almost have to ask you in terms of this whole thing with the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera and Simon Hill. I'm almost afraid to ask. In fact, I should break it here. I'm supposed to bring on Simon Hill, I think next week to talk about this, finally, after some scheduling conflicts. So, what do you make of this here before we get closing thoughts and such?
Lance Rivera and Simon Hill need to do something about this. It's ridiculous. In wrestling, you settle things in the ring, and why are they picking on each other like this when Simon can't even get in the ring? It seems stupid to me. And I'm eager to see them either, I don't know, are they going to have a brawl? I'm not really sure what this is going to end up being. But it's one hell of a feud. I'll give them that much. And some company's going to book it one day. I think Odyssey's got to get on it as soon as possible to be the first.
Well, certainly, Lucy, you stole my thunder there. You stole my questions. Obviously, that was what I was going to ask you before I get to closing thoughts. I was going to ask you about that, but I guess, I'm not even going to ask you now. I'll just wait to hear Simon's perspective on it, and we'll certainly figure that out here. Obviously, those are some things I'm excited about, but something tells me I'll be speaking much, much more about Mutiny on June the 18th, which is actually now going to be another month away from now. So I'm sure we'll have a lot to hear. Chris Brooker just came out and he had some questions about Ethan Edwards booking the card. Obviously, there's a whole situation that you've been a part of that, obviously, between the two of them. Sort of, I guess they're the co-general managers now, obviously. There's some different thoughts there. The spotlight now, and we haven't even spoke about recent Rogan. Something tells me they're going to be a part of something here. So there's a lot to get into here. We're excited about all that. But before I get closing thoughts from you, anything else you want to share? Anything else on your mind before we get closing thoughts?
Anything else on my mind? Well, I'm just really looking forward to the next couple of shows that we've got. And I also want to mention the Kingdom of Wrestling as well.
Yes,
and I think
next week.
Yeah, that's next week, and I unfortunately can't make it. I went to their first show and I loved it, and it was brilliant. But just scheduling conflicts can't. I haven't been able to make
it's tough.
But
You can't make everything. It's like you can't schedule everything. You can't schedule every interview. You can't schedule everywhere. Listen, KOW last week had a show. It was Superstar had a show at the same time. You had the LWF had a show at the same time. You had GTM had a show. It's like you can't be everywhere, really. You can't. You just can't be at every place at every single time. You just can't.
That's my favorite thing about British wrestling is that, especially in the Northwest, there's always a show going on and there's something different for everyone. And you really are spoiled for choice. If you've got the means to travel, you can really see so many different wrestlers in so many different types of matches in lots of different venues. Personally, the ones close to me, obviously Odyssey, KOW, LWF isn't too far, and the Kingdom of Wrestling, these are I like to support my friends, and that's where I see them all the most. So yeah, I'd love to support my friends, and just anyone watching, get to your local indie wrestling show. You will love it. It doesn't matter whether you're a wrestling fan or not, or whether you just watch WWE and you don't think it'll be as good, I guarantee it'll actually probably be better.
Absolutely. Listen, you just stole my thunder. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, AEW, WWE, MLW, Impact, New Japan, I mean, all of them out there, I wouldn't put a candle to them when it comes to especially KOW. One more time before we get closing thoughts. KO_wrestling, K_O_wrestling, Knockout W on Facebook. You most certainly want to follow KOW. I want to give you the floor, Lucy, because I know it's getting late and my voice is kind of getting on the point of bordering time to retire for the day, because we have had a very, very lively discussion, not only with you, but also the Los Lancadores of the LWF. So I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. And I'm sure also Wildfire Nate Reese and Odyssey Pro Wrestling, can never forget about him. I'm sure he'll be a factor one way or another. But I turn it over to you. Anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to say? And I can't thank you enough. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom. Well, thank you as always for having me on. It's always such a pleasure. I have so much fun talking to you about everything. You do so much for the British wrestling scene all the way from America. I don't know how you do it. So thank you. And I guess everyone needs to look out for my report of the KOW show coming out very soon. I'll have full results, everything you need to know, all the drama, all the key moments from the match. I'll sum them all up in an article. That'll be posted on KOW's Facebook and socials, like Thomas just mentioned. It'll also be on my Facebook page, which is Lucy Simons Pro Wrestling Journalist. You can just search that; it'll come up. You can also go follow me on Twitter if you want. I have just changed my username.
I'm still getting used to it, Lucy. I'm still getting used to it. At first, I think it took me like a minute to realize, forgot Lucy changed the name.
Yeah, I just decided to change it.
I should have changed mine 5 years ago, by the way. I'm still in 2017. I'm like superstitious. I won't change anything.
Well, this is what I was like. I was like, this is me. This is my identity. But then I realized he's turned a new chapter in his life. I think I need to as well. So I changed it to at Lucy Sim Right.
All right, Sim.
So it's quite easy to find. I just tweet any old thoughts I got about wrestling. If you want to keep up with
I try to share from time to time. KOW and I try to share that stuff. I try to like and share as much as I can. I try.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on, especially for you. You cover just about everything. But if you're interested in keeping up with the UK indie scene, that's mainly the things I tweet about. Sometimes the odd WWE thing. Be sure to give me a follow.
I gotta get you one day and talk WWE, but the problem is, so we know all the same people. So it's like, if I don't ask you about KOW and Odyssey, people are going to be like, well, you had Lucy on. She's in those companies. She writes for them. She interviews, and you don't ask about them. I feel like almost like naked in a sense. I couldn't do that. I have to ask. So it's like, I should one day ask you about that. But, I just love speaking. I really love speaking British wrestling. I really love everything that British wrestling has to offer. So in one sense, I mean, it is what it is. But obviously, we'll figure out. I know it's getting late. So, Lucy, I thank you as always for all that you do, not only for us, but for everything you do for this scene. I'm looking forward to have you. I know I'm going to have you on here before Meltdown and most certainly before Mutiny. Looking forward to all that. Keep up the great work. Congratulations on all the success. And I know you're on your way to bigger and better things. And I can't wait to bring you on here back in the next month or so.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thanks for having me. Great fun as always.
As we're here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show with pro wrestling writer, reporter, journalist. She is a true jack of all trades. That's Lucy As I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager of Sportzwire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce, and thank you everybody for watching and listening here. What a day we had here at Sportzwire Radio. For the first time, we heard from one of the premier tag teams running the Los Lancadores of the LWF, and then we just heard from Lucy Simons running the gauntlet here when it comes to KOW and Odyssey Pro Wrestling. We'll be back here Thursday night with GTM World Champion Jack Johnson. And then Friday, Wildfire Nate Reese of Odyssey Pro Wrestling, the Acid Stephen Cross of the LWF. And for the first time ever, a tag team showdown, 9:30 p.m. British Standard Time, with the CCW, the Culverley Championship Wrestling Tag Team Champions, the Working Class Militia. We'll also have the Educators and the Modern Day Mafia of GTM. So that will be something, I promise you won't want to miss. But thank you, everybody, for watching, listening. If you're on Sportswire Radio, you'll get all new content upcoming. If you're on our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all those other channels of Twitter, thank you so much. We'll be back here Thursday night, Thursday afternoon, New York time. Thank you, and good night, everybody.